Welcome back to Askewed Reviews. And today we have another viewer request, and it is for the 1988 film They Live. Here is your trivia question for today. What is the name of the alien's home planet? The answer will be at the end of this video. So our film starts off with us meeting a homeless drifter who is coming into Los Angeles looking for work. Unfortunately, he's told time and time again that there is nothing available for him. He eventually makes his way over to a construction site and does end up getting a job. Also at this construction site, he meets a man named Frank who notifies him about a homeless encampment that he can go to get some help. While at the encampment, he happens to notice that there are some weird ongoings that happen at the church directly across the street. That very night, what seems like the entire police force shows up to push people out of the encampment and the church. The very next day, our main character sneaks back into the church to see what they were hiding there and finds a bunch of sunglasses. He tries on a pair, and that's when his world gets turned upside down. All marketing and advertising appears to be just subliminal messages that are hidden. Billboards, signs, even magazines all seem to be hiding something. And to make matters worse, some people look very different as well. The worst part is, some of them seem to notice that he's noticing. So after taking a few of them out, he runs off trying to get away from all of them. He then runs into a woman named Holly, who he tries to convince of everything that he's seen, but of course she doesn't believe him. Eventually he does find Frank, and after a little bit of convincing, is able to prove to him all of the stuff he's been talking about. So will two blue-collar schmucks armed with weapons be able to stop this alien invasion? John Carpenter was the director and co-writer for this film. He also managed to sneak in a little bit of a cameo, as he's the voice you can hear saying sleep over the loudspeakers. There's also direct references to John Carpenter and fellow director George A. Romero, as one of the aliens is talking about movies and says that filmmakers like George A. Romero and John Carpenter have to show some restraint. They're simply, and then gets cut off. The film is based off of the short story 8 o'clock in the morning by Ray Nelson. Carpenter wanted the aliens in the film to look like a corruption of humans since they were corrupting humanity. Roddy Piper, who in my opinion did an amazing job in this film, is never actually named in the movie, but in the credits his name is Nada, which is more than likely from the name George Nada, which appears in the short story. The character of Nada was originally written with Kurt Russell in mind, but since Carpenter and Russell had already worked on 4 films together, Elvis, Escape from New York, The Thing, and Big Trouble in Little China, he felt he should probably cast someone else. Before choosing Piper, Carpenter actually looked at quite a few other actors for the role of Nada, including Alec Baldwin, Michael Biehn, Brian Bosworth, Jeff Bridges, Bruce Campbell, Tom Cruise, Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, Tommy Lee Jones, Michael Keaton, Christopher Lambert, Stephen Lang, Dolph Lundgren, Michael Madsen, Bill Paxton, Ron Perlman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Patrick Swayze, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bruce Willis, David Hasselhoff, and Johnny Depp. Now, Roddy Piper was actually chosen due to the fact that John Carpenter had always been a big wrestling fan, and he was watching WrestleMania 3 when he realized that Piper would be perfect for the role. Apparently, the only issue that Piper even caused was because he was married during the filming of this movie, he refused to take off the wedding ring during production. Piper also was the one who created the line, "I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum." He originally created it as a line he was going to use in wrestling, but didn't end up using it, so he told Carpenter about it, and he loved it. Piper at the time was working for WWF, and he had to get clearance at the moment from Vince McMahon to go and do the film. McMahon said that he didn't want Piper to do it, so Piper quit the WWF, and it ended up being the right move. The film was a huge success, and Piper was actually brought back in a larger role once he got back to the WWF. Piper also credits John Carpenter and himself for jump-starting the wrestler-turned-actor migration, as he says he was the first and was also the most successful at it. He also states no other wrestler-turned-actor has put out anything as good as They Live. Carpenter knew right away that Keith David was the right choice for Frank due to working with him on the film The Thing. The fight scene between Nada and Frank was originally only supposed to take 20 seconds, but ended up being 5 minutes. And this is due to the fact that Piper and David decided to fight it out for real. The only fake hits were the ones to the face and groin. They rehearsed for 3 weeks in the backyard of Carpenter's production office. This is probably one of the most well known fight scenes in a film, so much so that on South Park they did an episode called Cripple Fight, which was very much based off of the actual fight scene from this film. Meg Foster was cast as Holly primarily due to her performance in the movie Ticket to Heaven. George Buck Flower has played a homeless man in 3 different films: They Live, Back to the Future, and Escape from New York. He also has been in 3 films involving aliens: They Live, Starman, and Mac and Me. Stunt coordinator Jeff Amata played almost all of the aliens, male or female, except when there were scenes that had multiple of them. Apparently, the demolition of the homeless encampment was very hard for Piper to witness, as he actually went through a similar situation in his own life. Also, Carpenter brought in actual homeless folks to do the production and gave them food and paychecks. It actually cost $12,000 to have that train roll by at the opening shot. Unfortunately, there was a technical error and it required them to do it a second time. Did you happen to recognize the PKE meter prop from Ghostbusters? Some of the aliens are using it throughout the film. There are 2 bands that I'm aware of, The Pretty Reckless and Sugar Coma, that actually use some of the TV broadcast dialogue in one of their songs. The original release date for this film was October 21st, but that was actually the same day that Halloween 4 came out, and Carpenter, even though not directing that series anymore, did not want to clash. He instead chose November 4th. That way he could capitalize on the November 8th presidential elections, since the film does have some social commentary on the political climate at that time. So there have been talks on a remake or sequel ever since 2010, where Matt Reeves was in talks to do so. Now, that kept going on the back burner, but as of 2023, it looks like this might actually happen, with Reeves still directing and possibly Andy Serkis as the main character. So when it comes to the film They Live, this is honestly one of my favorite horror movies ever made. I really like the story, I love the acting in it, and I love the social commentary. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 5. Now, if you can't get enough of this film and can't wait for the remake, they actually did make a board game. And for other movies that I would recommend that have a similar feel, I would say The Stuff, Soylent Green, Falling Down, or Total Recall. Now, as for the trivia question from the beginning of this episode, what is the name of the alien's home planet? Now, this answer isn't 100% confirmed, as there's a sequence where some of the aliens are teleporting to another planet, and it's stated that Flight Alpha 7 to Andromeda is now boarding. But George Buck Flower's character does state that that's where they come from. I don't know if he means the planet or just the teleportation device. Also, a little bit of extra information for you: Carpenter always called them ghouls on set, but technically, if the aliens are named after the ones from the original short story, they're actually called fascinators. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Askewed Reviews, and if there's a movie you'd like to see get a review, just mention it in the comments.